Hey Star Trek fans, Dan Gunther here. Welcome to the Lower Decks Deep Dive, where I take a look at a recent episode of Star Trek Lower Decks and list all of the Easter eggs and canon connections that I can find in the episode. Now, as a lot of you know, I am pretty far behind on these at the moment. I've been away for the better part of the summer. I was gone for all of August, working on the road, but I am back now and ready to get caught up. So the first of these catch-up videos is for Season 2, Episode 2 of Lower Decks, Kayshon, His Eyes Open. Now, this episode in particular is one that is really interesting one to kind of cut my teeth on getting back to these, because there are just so many Easter eggs jam-packed into this episode, with, of course, the items aboard the member of the Collectors Guild's ship, claiming the lion's share of the Easter eggs in this episode. So without further ado, let's jump right in and take a look at what I was able to find. The episode opens with a view of the sonic showers. We've seen the sonic showers before, once briefly in Star Trek the Motion Picture and in the Voyager episode Juggernaut. Here I like the clever way that they're censoring the bodies, using the sonic waves over the bodies of the ensigns that are using this shared shower. We also, in this episode, meet Lieutenant Kayshon, the new security officer aboard the Cerritos. He is, of course, a Tamarian. This species was introduced in the TNG episode Darmok. They speak primarily in metaphor, which leads to a few jokes throughout this episode. So here we go. Let's get right into the Collector's ship here and all of the many Easter eggs inside. So I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. Pause if you want to take a look specifically at some of these or if they go by too fast. So first of all, the Collector, who recently passed away, is wearing the Collectors Guild logo, which is the same logo that we see Kivas Fajo wearing in the episode The Most Toys. Speaking of Kivas Fajo, a kind of roundabout reference is made to him when talking about this collector, where they say, isn't he the one who tried to collect data? And they say they all tried to collect data. In that episode, The Most Toys, Fajo, in fact, did try to stage Data's death in an effort to add him to his collection. So in the collection, we see a Betazoid gift box from the TNG episode Haven, a Picard bust from the TNG episode The Pegasus, the game from the episode The Game, the Mars Curiosity rover, an M113 creature from the TOS episode The Man Trap, a trombone, which may or may not be one of Riker's trombones, as we see his trombone in his ready room later. This isn't necessarily Riker's, but I think the link is intended to be made there. We see a respirator that was worn by Kirk in the TOS episode The Cloudminders, Khan's broken necklace from Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan, a number of Data's paintings, including this abstract one of Spot, a ship's disaster buoy, much like the one from the SS Valiant seen in the TOS episode Where No Man Has Gone Before, this set of weapons, which includes a Klingon sword from Worf's wall in his quarters, Sulu's rapier, and L'Rell's blade from Star Trek Discovery. This candle, which contained the spirit of Ronan in the TNG episode Sub Rosa, the Masaka mask from the TNG episode Masks, a Horta egg from the TOS episode The Devil in the Dark, a baseball and bat, which may or may not have belonged to Ben Sisko, but again, the implication is definitely there, as well as, speaking of baseball, a hat belonging to one of the Logicians, the Vulcan team, from the DS9 episode Take Me Out to the Holosuite. We also see a Terran Empire flag, this collection of weapons, which includes a Kartakan, which is a Jem'Hadar weapon, a Lurpa, which is a Vulcan weapon as seen in Amok Time, an Ushan, which is an Andorian ice miner's tool, also used as a weapon, and the Klingon Batleth and Mekhleth. We also see Picard's painting from the TNG episode A Matter of Perspective. This Kotiskot board, Kotiskot was featured in Star Trek Voyager and often played by Naomi Wildman. The Kurlan Nasikos from the TNG episode The Chase. A torpedo coffin is my best guess as to this one, which we first saw in the TNG episode The Schizoid Man. This coffin may or may not contain the remains of Ira Graves, who was interned in space in that episode. Similarly, this could actually also be a Type 8 probe, which is what Kalar used to travel to the Enterprise in the second season TNG episode The Emissary. We also see on the wall a stuffed Alpha 177 dog head. The creature that this head belonged to was featured in the TOS episode The Enemy Within. We also see an isomagnetic disintegrator. This was a weapon used by Worf in Star Trek Insurrection. A box of Chateau Picard, the wine that Picard's family produces and bottles on his estate in France. This, which may be a Bessard collector from a TOS-era shuttlecraft. A stasis box from the TAS episode The Slaver Weapon. The pod used to carry a Medusan. We saw this in the TOS episode, Is There in Truth No Beauty? This is the box used to carry the Medusan Kolos around. We also see Neelix's chef outfit from Star Trek Voyager, the shrunken Terratan city from the TAS episode The Terratan Incident. This may be Archer's water polo ball from Star Trek Enterprise. A Ketracel white dispenser. This is used to dispense the drug that the founders keep the Jem'Hadar addicted to. An engineering scanner/tool used in Star Trek the Original Series, referred to off-screen as a Trident scanner. An Inaran musical instrument from the Voyager episode Remember. The paperback novel Hotel Royale from the TNG episode The Royale. Odo's bucket from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. We also see what Tendi refers to as Kahless's fornication helmet. Kahless, of course, was the historical figure from Kronos who led the Klingons on the path of honor that they currently believe in their society. This looks to be a poker visor, possibly similar to the one that Data wore on Star Trek The Next Generation. We see a TOS women's uniform with lieutenant's rank insignia on it. The Catan probe dominates the room, seen briefly from various angles. This was from the TNG episode The Inner Light. Also, interestingly enough, we see a Nintendo Switch and a fidget spinner. We also see a skeleton of E.T. the Extraterrestrial, or a similar being in that familiar pose where he's holding out one finger. We see a Gorn skeleton, an Excalbian diorama with Abraham Lincoln from the TOS episode The Savage Curtain, a Salat skeleton, that's the Vulcan creature that Spock keeps as a pet in the animated series and chased Archer and T'Pol in Star Trek Enterprise. We also see a Megatu skeleton. The Megatu was first seen in the TOS episode A Private Little War. And most disturbingly, we have the skeleton of Spock 2. This is the rather large 50-foot tall clone of Spock introduced in the animated series episode The Infinite Vulcan. Now, this one might be a bit of a stretch, but I really think this is intentional. Listen to this recording of the collector as he says, and compare it to Nedry from Jurassic Park.
What's going on?
You didn't say the magic word.
I am almost certain this is meant to be a reference. So moving on from all of those myriad Easter eggs, and I'm sure I probably still missed a few, but we'll move on to Easter eggs aboard the USS Titan in the secondary plotline of this story. First of all, we see that the shuttlecraft of the USS Titan are named after famed jazz musicians. We see the Gillespie and the Monk, among others. This is directly from the novels featuring Riker and the Titan. In those novels, the shuttlecraft of the Titan were named after famous jazz composers as well. On the mining planet where Boimler and the away team infiltrate, the Pakleds are using Klingon disruptors. Mentioned is Will Riker's transporter twin, Thomas Riker, which of course comes into play later in the story, as Boimler is copied in much the same way, creating William Boimler. In Riker's ready room, we see a number of artifacts, including a Horgon, the Rysian fertility symbol that indicates that you are seeking Jamaharan. Riker's signature trombone, a model of the USS Pegasus, Riker's first assignment out of Starfleet Academy, a Civil War-era cap belonging to Riker's ancestor Thaddeus Riker, and at the very end of the episode, Riker shares a bottle of Romulan ale with William Boimler, while at the same time asking the computer to play Nightbird. This is another reference to the TNG episode Second Chances, the episode that introduced Thomas Riker. In that episode, Riker had been attempting for many years to master the song Nightbird on the trombone, which Troy mocked him about and would encourage him to try and play it. Well, those are the many and varied Easter eggs that I found in this episode. Were there any that I missed? Please let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you especially to the Patreon supporters for all of their help. Thank you to all of you who have continued to stick by me during this extended absence. I promise to be making up for it in the days and weeks to come. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, as always, live long and prosper.